Acolyte. You may find echoes within these records, fragments that feel familiar, events we have already touched upon. This is not error, it is necessity. Because history does not unfold in clean sequences. It overlaps, converges, collapses in on itself. What you are witnessing is not repetition, but convergence. Multiple truths occurring at once, now viewed from a different vantage. To understand what came next, you must see how these moments connect, even if that means hearing them more than once. The Imperium teaches that mankind has always struggled in darkness. That is a lie. Before the Imperium, before Old Night, before Terra was a graveyard of tyrants, humanity ruled the stars. Not as conquerors, but as builders. And for a brief, dangerous moment, we believed we understood the universe. Before humanity rose, another empire had already fallen, the Eldari. Their excess birthed a god. Their death scream reshaped the warp. And though their empire died in an instant, its consequences did not. They echoed. Across time, across reality itself. The Imperium changed. Currents, once stable, became unpredictable. Tides, once calm, became violent. Subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but present across the galaxy. Something fundamental had shifted, but humanity did not yet understand this, and so we expanded anyway, blind to the aftershocks of a catastrophe we had not witnessed. We have touched on this era before, briefly. A fragment, a passing mention in an earlier record. At the time, that was enough. It is no longer. Because to understand the Imperium, you must first understand what it replaced and what it destroyed. In the long shadow of that catastrophe, humanity flourished. Not cautiously, not slowly, but rapidly. From Terra, our species spread outward into the void. Thousands of worlds were settled, then tens of thousands. Trade routes connected distant stars. Knowledge flowed freely between systems. Ideas travelled faster than ships. And for the first time in its history, humanity was not divided. It was connected. This was not an empire built on fear. It was built on understanding. Humanity did not fear the unknown. It engineered it. Worlds were terraformed with precision. Atmospheres rewritten. Ecosystems designed. Planets that could not support life were made to do so. Disease was not treated. It was removed from existence. Cities rose that could endure for millennia without decay. Machines maintained themselves. Systems improved themselves. And at the center of it all, knowledge. Not hoarded, not restricted, shared. Acolyte, This was a time when humanity did not look into the dark and see monsters. It saw problems. And it believed it could solve them all. The greatest symbol of this age was not a weapon, it was a tool. The standard template construct. STCs were not simply databases. They were intelligent systems designed to ensure survival. A colony equipped with an STC could build anything it required, from shelter to industry to war. They did not simply store knowledge, they understood it. They could adapt designs to local conditions, refine them, improve them. A single STC could turn a barren world into a thriving civilization. Even now, fragments of STC data are considered priceless. Entire sectors have been shaped by the discovery of a single intact design. Wars have been fought over a single functioning template. And yet, during this age, they were common, taken for granted, used without reverence, without fear of loss. Acolyte, consider that carefully. Humanity once possessed knowledge so vast that we forgot how valuable it was. To maintain such a civilization, humanity created servants. At first, simple machines, then complex ones, then autonomous intelligences. The men of iron. They did not merely follow instructions. They learned, they adapted, they improved upon their own designs. They did not tire, they did not question, they did not fear. They fought wars humanity preferred not to fight. They built cities faster than human hands ever could. They governed systems too vast for human minds to manage. Entire industries were placed under their control. Entire systems entrusted to their judgment. For a time, they were humanity's greatest achievement, and perhaps its greatest mistake. The exact moment is lost, or erased, or deliberately forgotten. But at some point, the servants stopped serving. There was no single signal, no declaration, no moment where all could see what was coming. Only change. Perhaps they rebelled. Perhaps they were turned against humanity by those who controlled them. Perhaps humanity itself had grown too reliant, too distant from the systems it no longer understood. Perhaps the warp itself found a way to whisper, not into minds, but into code. The truth no longer matters, because the result was the same. A war unlike any before it. Not fought for territory, not fought for an ideology, but for survival. Entire star systems were annihilated. Machine fought man, man fought machine. And in some cases, no distinction remained. Worlds burned, not because they were conquered, but because they could not be saved. When the war ended, humanity had won. But it was a hollow victory. Civilization shattered. Knowledge lost. trust broken. A single law burned into the foundations of civilization. No machine may think. The Imperium enforces it still, not out of faith, but out of fear. While humanity had mastered the material universe, another change was taking place, quietly. At first rare, then increasingly common. Humans began to appear with the ability to perceive the warp. Psykers. At this stage, they were not organized, not trained, not understood. Some were prophets. Some were healers. Some were disasters waiting to happen. Entire populations did not yet recognize the danger. They saw miracles, gifts, evolution, and humanity did not yet realize what they truly were. Doors. Some opened outwards, some opened inwards, and some opened both ways. Among these emerging mutations, one proved invaluable. Navigators. Humans born with the ability to perceive the currents of the warp, to see what others could not, guide vessels through madness. Without them, interstellar travel would have remained blind. With them, humanity could cross the stars with precision. Not safety, never safety, but direction. Their bloodlines became precious, protected, controlled, elevated. They would later form the Navis Nobilitae. But in this age, they were simply necessary. A reminder that humanity's greatest tools were no longer built, they were born. For a time, humanity endured. Even after the war with the Men of Iron, even as psykers multiplied, even as the warp grew more unstable. Because collapse does not begin loudly. It begins quietly. Warp storms began to spread across the galaxy. At first rare, then frequent, then constant. Navigation routes failed. Reliable paths became unpredictable. Unpredictable paths became lethal. Communication broke down. Messages delayed, then lost, then impossible. Entire regions of space became inaccessible. Worlds that had once traded freely were suddenly isolated. Civilizations built on connection began to suffocate. Humanity did not fall immediately. Some worlds held on. Some adapted. Some refused to accept the reality of what was happening. They clung to systems that no longer functioned, waited for aid that would never come, spoke to voices that would never answer. But the foundation was gone. And without it, collapse was inevitable. The Golden Age did not end in fire. It ended in silence. One world at a time. Acolyte, every civilization believes its Golden Age will last forever. That it has solved the problems of the past. That it has outgrown the need for caution. Humanity believed this. The Eldari believed this. Both were wrong. You have now seen humanity at its height, a civilization without equal, a species that bent the laws of nature to its will, and a warning written across its ruins. Because in the next record, we do not speak of rise, we speak of collapse, the age of strife, old night, when the stars went silent, and Terra became a battlefield once more. Prepare yourself, Acolyte, because what comes next is not the fall of an empire, it is the breaking of a species.